So I'm going to get started. For those of you who are currently joining, welcome to today's webinar, Fact, Fiction, and Food, Advice for Your Fertility Journey. I'm your host for the evening. My name is Dara Godfrey, and I'm a registered dietitian at RMA of New York, based in Manhattan. And it's great. We're on the heels of National Infertility Awareness Week, and I'm really thrilled to be speaking today about a subject that I'm so passionate about. We've come such a long way in the fertility world, for a big part of our history from ancient times up until actually quite recently. We've had one prevalent misconception on fertility, which was that fertility problems were solely attributed to women. But it's unbelievable to see that with, reproductive advancements in the space, we now are much more well aware that there are so many potential causes of infertility. And in reality, with infertile couples, a third of the issue can be attributed to men, a third to women, and a third being unexplained. So this is just one example of a misconception in the fertility space. And now, there's so many more advancements in social media content. There's a lot of information out there. And, working at RMA for the past 14 years, I've seen and heard it all. And unfortunately, there's just so many misleading statements that can further contribute to anxiety and fear that so many people in this space are already experiencing. So today I'll be dispelling just some of the most common fertility nutrition myths that we so often hear, and then provide some guidance on what we can do nutritionally and beyond to support our health, our fertility, our chances of conceiving. And as I mentioned before, I'll leave some time at the end for some Q&A from the audience. So please feel free to submit any questions that you have down in the Q&A box, which is at the bottom of your webinar screen. I absolutely love this quote. It's this woman in this healthcare space says that food is medicine, and the right kind of relationship with food can make a positive impact on your health. I wholeheartedly agree. So let's get right into myths. Myth number one, I hear this quite often, that supplements are more important than food when it comes to fertility. It would be great to have everything that you needed in a pill to give all that nutrition that you really need, so you don't have to rely on what you eat. But as we know, hopefully we know, that supplements are not a cure-all. It's not something we should rely on or use as a substitution for the vitamins and minerals we get in food. I mean, that's what the word supplement is to supplement, hopefully, a well-rounded diet. So food first to get all the natural vitamins and minerals. Food has a lot of benefit, just not only from the vitamins and minerals, but also lots of antioxidants, lots of components that are anti-inflammatory, dietary fiber, which you often can't find in one pill alone. When we eat foods, we get that combination that really synergistically works well in our body. So the supplements that we get from, or the vitamins and minerals we get from food are much more potent. We can absorb them a lot better. So really food first. Not to say that supplements are bad. I do like to say that they're more of an insurance policy, kind of that safety net on the days when you don't have access perhaps to a wide variety of foods. But it is not a replacement of foods. But there is potential benefits. And so I don't want to say that all supplements are bad, but really focusing, the most important thing is to focus on prenatal vitamins, especially when you're trying to conceive. It's so important to get it early on, to have that safety net of a lot of those vitamins and minerals that are really important for pregnancy: folate, iron, vitamin D, omega-3s. And then some people with certain dietary restrictions may need more. But my whole philosophy is, before you start adding a whole list of supplements to take, start with your prenatal, And that's why it's so important to meet with a healthcare provider, with a dietitian, so they can review what you're currently eating and then perhaps fill in the cracks with some supplements. But again, if we can get it through food first, that is optimal. But specifically, my vegan and vegetarian patients can benefit with some added nutrients like B12, iron, choline, zinc. But again, it should be individualized and customized. There's no one size fits all when it comes to a supplement protocol. And it's nice to see that the American Dietary Guidelines agree with me that nutritional needs should be met primarily through food. You'll definitely experience greater success with targeted supplementation only once you've really laid that nutritional groundwork with real food. So let's get on to myth number 2. This one is pretty funny, but I hear it quite often. Should I be eating pineapple core? And the myth is that pineapple core increases the odds of implantation after your embryo transfer. So sounds interesting, sounds a little bit odd. And where does this come from? You see it a lot online. That the pineapple can be connected to fertility success. And the theory is based on bromelain, and bromelain is found in the core of a pineapple. It's most jam-packed in that core, which is not the tastiest thing to eat. But the thought behind it is that bromelain which is a group of enzymes that can actually help break down food for digestion, also potentially has anti-inflammatory properties and also anticoagulant properties. And that means that it can allow potentially more blood flow to the uterus. So that's the theory. But the issue with this, and this is why it's a myth, is that there's no research to back it up that eating lots of pineapple core will help up your chances of getting pregnant. Just anecdotal. That doesn't mean that we shouldn't be eating pineapple. There's so many benefits of pineapple. It's a really rich source of vitamin C. It's great that only, just over a half a cup of pineapple can give you your day's worth of vitamin C. And vitamin C is great for your immune system to keep you feeling strong. It's a nice source of manganese, which is great for your bone health. It's a nice source of fiber. And again, has the potential to bring blood flow to the uterus. But the core itself doesn't taste so good. Again, if it's something that you like and you want to have, it could be okay. But keep in mind, it's not a miracle food. And there's no such thing as one food that really can help guarantee a successful pregnancy. And also you have to be careful. Some people who are on blood thinners like aspirin should not be taking it. So it's definitely contraindicated for some people. So let's go to myth number 3, which is probably my favorite. Sports drinks like Gatorade are a good choice to consume during ovarian stimulation post-egg retrieval to minimize bloating. Gatorade for your health? It's crazy, but the thought behind this is that Gatorade is an electrolyte solution. So it gives you your electrolytes, your sodium, potassium, various electrolytes. Solutions may also have, your magnesium and chloride and things of that nature. And the theory behind that is drinking something that has electrolytes in it can prevent ovarian hyperstimulation syndrome, or OHSS, after egg retrieval. OHS is actually something very rare, but it can be potentially serious, and it can be a potentially serious complication with IVF. And what can happen is OHSS can develop when your ovaries swell, and it potentially can leak fluid into your abdomen. So that's the danger. And it usually happens in people when they receive fertility treatments that stimulate their ovaries to produce large number of eggs. So this is, after a trigger shot of HCG, that's when OHSS potentially can develop. But it's not common. According to mountsinai.org, OHSS occurs in only about 3 to 6% of women going through IVF. And in terms of severe cases, it's only about 1% or less of people. So it's really not something that we commonly see. So it's not something that should be too alarming. But again, if you're concerned, electrolytes may be helpful to prevent OHSS. But Gatorade, of all the things to go for, Gatorade is not the best. Gatorade has dyes, it has colorings, and the wild thing is it has 34 grams of sugar. That's a whole lot of sugar. So a lot of people will ask me, should I be taking the sugar-free alternative? Still has the dyes, still has the food colorings, and the artificial sweetener that they use is sucralose, aka Splenda, which has been shown to be potentially harmful for fertility. So Gatorade, not the best option. And aside from electrolytes, which we can speak about soon in terms of some other alternatives that may be better, another big recommendation is to avoid rigorous exercise, jumping, twisting, around your IVF cycle, especially after the trigger shot and well after the egg retrieval. But the options that I recommend if people are curious and they, potentially want to try some electrolytes, bone broth. I mean, bone broth, I think, is one of the most natural things you can get, and it's filled with natural electrolytes. If you do want to take something from a package, Element is pretty good, or Element T. It's a great combination of sodium, potassium, and magnesium. And what I like about it, it's in a powder form. You could put it in your water, shake it up, and it doesn't have the artificial colorings. It doesn't have the dyes in it, and it also has a supposedly better sugar alternative, which is stevia. And then another natural source can come from coconut water. It's a nice natural electrolyte solution. But just keep in mind, because there are natural sugars in coconut water, a little bit goes a long way. A half a cup is all you need. And on this theme, nope. I'm sure you've also heard McDonald's French fries after an embryo, after an egg retrieval can be really great. And I'm sure it's similar properties. It's really high in salt. But to recommend something that is really processed and has a lot of unhealthy fats like trans fats in it is not great for your health and your fertility success. And then the last myth I'll be speaking about today is nutrition does not play a role in fertility. And of course, as a dietitian, nutrition plays a huge role. There's many people can still get pregnant without focusing on food and nutrition and the quality of their diet. But what we can eat can really make a positive impact on our fertility. Food and fertility are intimately connected. And it's really one of the most important lifestyle factors that we can use to help improve our egg health, our sperm health. We can help, it can help regulate a woman's menstrual cycle. It can support ovulation. It could also support our fertility hormones. It can, what we eat can help reduce inflammation in our system, which is really important going into a pregnancy. And ultimately, it can support not only a pregnancy, but really postpartum recovery, which is really important as well. So we can get so many of the essential micronutrients from the food that we eat. And those are the vitamins and minerals that your body needs to function properly. So remember I spoke about, yes, you can get it from supplements, but first from food. Really some of the most important vitamins and minerals for fertility that you can get from food include folate, iron, vitamin B12, omega-3s, magnesium, choline. I mean, there's just so many, but those are just a couple of the most important micronutrients we can get in our food. From a balanced intake of food, we can also get our macronutrients, and those are the proteins, fats, and carbohydrates. They give you energy, and they are really important to help you have a successful pregnancy. And this is the kicker. They're really important before pregnancy, ideally 3 months, but there's never, there's always there's never a perfect time to start except right now to really make changes to optimize your health. And what I love about speaking about nutrition is, when it comes to fertility struggles, there's so many things that are not within our control. And what we eat is something that we can change. It's something within our control. And a little bit can go a long way. So Before I get into what we should be eating, I kind of want to give you guys a little sneak peek into what we currently are eating here in America, nutritionally. So, modern life has really changed our eating habits, and our Western diet is also called the standard American diet, which is very sad. It's a dietary pattern that is characterized by foods that are really high in calories, that are poor in nutrition. It's not just food, it's also including what you drink. It also has, there's a lot of processed foods and meats that we get in our diet nowadays. So many of the foods that we get commercially are high in refined sugars. Those are your poorer quality sugars coming from white sugar and white rice. Foods that are high in sodium and foods that are high in trans fat, a lot of the fried foods that we're getting. And it's coming from a lot of the processed and convenience foods that we have access to now more than ever. And unfortunately, they've both displaced whole foods. It was shocking when I read this from Harvard that the average American gets more, oh yeah, I agree, more than half of their calories from ultra processed foods. So there's processed foods and then there's ultra processed foods. And foods that have been altered from their natural forms and then have added ingredients in them. So like your sugar, your salt, your artificial colors, your preservatives, that have been tampered with and then often fried. So this would include your chips, your fries, your cakes, your donuts, your cookies, your ice cream, your ready-made meals. We're just getting way too much of it every single day. When it comes to sugar, Americans are consuming, this is according to the CDC, about 17 teaspoons of added sugar a day. That's a lot. That's about 270 calories coming from added sugars. And the Dietary Guidelines of America, this was written from 2020 to 2025, advise that Americans should get less than 12 teaspoons or less of added sugar daily. So that's about 50 grams or about 200 calories. That's still a lot. I still think that's a little on the high end. But think of it this way, a can of Coke has 10 teaspoons of added sugar or about 39 grams a day. So think about that we're getting, like Americans are getting almost 2 servings of Coca-Cola every single day. And we're not just getting it from what we drink, but we're also getting it, as I mentioned before, through desserts, cookies, ice creams, and cakes, from a lot of the commercial pastries or baked goods, like Entenmann's or that type of commercial pastries. And the most surprising thing, where are we getting our added sugars from? From breakfast cereals and yogurts, commercial breakfast cereals. There's a lot of companies, and you know who they are, who actually market their cereals and their yogurts to be heart healthy, to be nutritious, to be a good part of your diet. When in fact, you look at the fine print, you read the labels, and they are laden with a lot of added sugars. Going back to what we're consuming via beverages, a great study was done in 2018 in Boston and Boston University, and they found that sugary beverages reduced fertility in both men and women. And the crazy thing is just men and women who drank even as little as 1 soda a day had between a 25 to 33% lower probability of conceiving each month than people who didn't drink any sodas at all. So, reducing these types of foods can really be helpful in trying to improve ovulation, egg and sperm parameters, hormonal health. So now let's get to the good stuff. My philosophy really is speaking about the yeses more so than the nos. And I kind of hinted as to what we should be eating. And I know there's many diets out there that have been proposed to be somewhat helpful for fertility, but I'm more inclined to talking about, patterns and specific foods that should be included. And big surprise, whole, real foods. That's what we should be eating more often than not. And what does this mean? Fresh or frozen foods that are found in nature, foods that are coming directly from the earth, which are minimally processed. So that way you don't remove like the critical nutrients that are there for our health, foods that are low in pesticides, If we do choose to have foods that have labels on them, we're going for ones with very few simple ingredients that we recognize, with little or no additives or preservatives, preferably foods that are in season. And that's something that I like to really hone in on. Um, you know, it's springtime. What's in season right now? Things like green beans and pears and asparagus. It's not the season for those summer fruits, those tropical summer fruits. Um, and really, most importantly, having a wide variety of these whole foods. We want to have really a healthy microbiome, and that is all the good bacteria in our GI system, including, our vaginal microbiome. And we want a wide variety of foods to really make our microbiome as rich as possible. So what's more specific? What are healthy foods? Your vegetables, your fruits, your nuts, your seeds, your fish, seafood, shellfish, poultry, meats, dairy, eggs, legumes, whole grains. What do all of these foods have in common? They're whole foods, and they are all nutrient dense. They're the foods that our ancestors ate, that our great grandparents, maybe our grandparents, but probably our great grandparents ate. Um, so these are some areas that I really want to hone in on now. What I'm seeing, at least with my patient population, I'm seeing that there are certain areas where people are falling short on, and I really want to really promote these foods because they really have the potential to be helpful for fertility and conception. First one is protein. And for any of my patients who are listening in tonight, they know I talk about protein all the time because it's key for fertility. Protein is the building blocks of human life. All of our cells are made up of proteins. So we definitely need proteins to keep every single cell in our body thriving. But it's also really important for the production of hormones that regulate our menstrual cycle. So think of our LH and our FSH. So we definitely need protein for that. Also for healthy egg and sperm production. Also, it's so important for a healthy metabolic function, including supporting blood sugar balance. And this is something also that I speak with quite frequently. Protein helps slow down our blood sugars from rising too fast. And we don't want our blood sugars to rise too quickly. We don't want them to be too low. We want them to be in that sweet spot. And protein helps with that, especially if you're eating protein at every single meal, especially if you are pairing any carbohydrate. It should be paired with a protein that really can help support our blood sugar balance. And it keeps us satiated. It helps us to feel full. And there are many types of protein sources. And I really do like to emphasize animal proteins, meat, fish, eggs, and dairy. Yes, getting a variety, but animal protein sources are really important because they contain a lot of the essential nutrients for fertility, which I've kind of mentioned before, but I want to reiterate some of the most important ones: iron, omega-3s, your choline, your vitamin A, your B12, and your zinc. They are predominantly found in animal sources of protein. But a lot of the research that has currently been done definitely promotes a lot of plant proteins: your beans, your legumes, your nuts, your seeds, your organic tofu, your tempeh. Those are also very nutritious. And if you do go for your animal proteins like your meat and your fish and your poultry, really try to go for better quality. If you can, choose grass-fed beef, pasture-raised chicken, or organic meats, or even wild fish. Those are definitely best. And really try to avoid or limit the processed meats. That really, a lot of the research that negatively shows, how meat could be negative for your fertility, really is predominantly with these processed meats, so those deli meats that we get. Really important to get protein at every single meal. I also see a lot of my patients lacking on vegetables. And of course, as a dietitian, I should be pro vegetables, but I really do want to emphasize how important they are for our health. They have so many vitamins, minerals. The ones that are particularly important for fertility that are rich in a lot of the vegetables that we get: folate, vitamin C, vitamin K, vitamin A, which is beta carotene, which you find in your vegetables, magnesium, potassium. And you can also get lots of antioxidants and lycopene and fiber. So there's many benefits to eating your vegetables. And going back to the antioxidants, the reason why we should be eating a lot of vegetables for the antioxidant benefit is they can offset the potential harms of oxidative stress on fertility. And we're seeing, there's a big tie between a lot of oxidative stress in our body with infertility issues. And on top of that, veggies can also be anti-inflammatory, and can also help support your immune health. So, foods that are high in the vegetables that are high in vitamin C, like peppers and broccoli in particular, can be great for our immune health and also help with inflammation. But vegetables in general help you go to the bathroom too. So if you have any problems in that area, another great reason to go for them. And fresh or frozen is great. I think people are very surprised when I mention that frozen vegetables are just as healthy, if not more healthy than fresh vegetables, especially by the time we get it. A lot of the fresh vegetables that we get from a grocery store can be sitting around for a long period of time, whereas the frozen vegetables that we get are actually picked and frozen right away. So they really do retain a lot of their good quality vitamins and minerals. Definitely try to go for lower pesticide organic if possible. And the key to vegetables, big surprise, but to include fat with them, a source of fat. And that way you can absorb a lot of the fat soluble vitamins that are in them, vitamins A, D, E, and K. And really a great way to look at it, a great goal to look out for is try to get half of your plate twice a day with vegetables, or about 3 cups or more of vegetables. A wide variety is the key. Definitely eat the rainbow. Of all the things that I really like to promote, this is one of my favorites. And unfortunately, it's one of the most vilified and very controversial, especially in the fertility world. Quality fat. So I didn't just say fats, it's the quality, good quality fats. But we do need to have fat in our system. It plays a huge role in hormone production. Just think of this. All steroid hormones, including estrogen and progesterone, are derived from fats, from cholesterol. So when we restrict fat, we can actually get less of those hormones that we really need for our health. And it's also no surprise that we actually see more ovulation and menstrual cycle issues in people who consume low-fat diets. And as I just mentioned, we need fat to help absorb all those good vitamins and minerals from our vegetables. So I really like to, encourage people to embrace fat. Also, the funny thing is that many of the foods that I believe are really healthy for fertility contain fat. Salmon, eggs, bone broth, avocado, almonds, flax seeds, the list goes on. So there really is, so many great foods that are good sources of fat and that are great for fertility. And particularly fatty fish, they're such a great source of omega-3 fatty acids. One of the most, one of the healthiest fats, and omega-3s can help reduce inflammation in your body, can protect the integrity of both eggs and sperm, and is really essential for healthy fetal development. So we need to have fat, but definitely going for healthier sources, definitely coming from omega-3s. On the other hand, it's a great idea to reduce some of the fats that are not as great for our body, and particularly seed and veggie oils that are very processed, such as corn, soy, canola. They're coming, from a very processed seed oil, but they are richer in omega-6 fatty acids. And we definitely, if we have too much of these omega-6 fatty acids in our body, that can actually increase the inflammation in our body, which can lead to higher rates of infertility. And the same goes for trans fats, which I mentioned a little bit before, but those are often the foods that we like to eat. The fried foods like donuts, chicken, fried chicken, French fries, a lot of the commercial baked goods that we eat. But it can also be found in shortening, in a lot of baked goods, non-dairy coffee creamer, which I see a lot of my patients going for, refrigerated doughs like biscuits and rolls. So it's found in a lot of foods as well. Something else I see a lot of my patients not getting enough of is fiber. It's a type of carbohydrate that's found in plants, and it's not digestible by the human body. And the ones that I'm talking about when it comes to fiber are the fiber coming from your vegetables, your fruits, your whole grains, not the fiber that we get from a Metamucil or from a supplement per se. But the vegetable, fruits, and whole grains are especially helpful for fertility. With other types of carbohydrates that are broken down and used as glucose or fuel for energy for our body, fiber, on the other hand, stays in our gut, and then we eventually excrete it. It's really important for blood sugar control to include sources of fiber. It can help prevent insulin resistance, and this is something that I speak to a lot of my patients who have PCOS. We see a lot of insulin resistance in that population group, and fiber can really help with that and prevent people from becoming diabetic. It definitely can keep your blood sugars more stable and also improve women's ovulation function, and also help reduce circulating testosterone, which is often also linked to patients with PCOS. It could also, like vegetables, lower inflammation, lower oxidative stress. If we have too much inflammation and stress in our body, it can negatively influence our embryo quality and development and implantation. And what I love about fiber is that some fibers can actually act as a prebiotic. And I'm sure many of you have heard of the term probiotic, which is the good bacteria that we want in our GI tract. The prebiotic is the fuel for the good bacteria. But as I mentioned before, it's not just found in our gut, but it's also the microbiome or the environment found in our vaginal microbiome. So it also helps, how did I not mention this? It also helps relieve constipation, which a lot of my patients report having during an IVF cycle, and also with the use of their prenatal vitamins. So how much do we need? Women are definitely not getting enough, but the recommended amount is about 20 to 35 grams a day. And that sounds like a lot, but it's not that hard to get in. There's some really high sources, like chia seeds or flax seeds or bran, but you can get it from a wide variety of vegetables, fruits, seeds, grains, legumes. Trying to add some in throughout the day is great. And I always recommend starting to add them in slowly. If they're not part of your current day-to-day routine now, that's okay. Add them in slowly and make sure that you stay hydrated and you're drinking enough water, because you definitely need the water with the fiber to help it work perfectly or synergistically. And then two things actually that I don't necessarily see my patients having too little of. It's actually the opposite. I do want to have a quick mention about alcohol and caffeine. It's not necessarily something that people have to get rid of from their routine, but especially if you're considering, becoming pregnant, it's a great idea to start reducing your intake of both. And both may negatively affect egg quality. So specifically with alcohol, it could potentially disrupt normal menstrual regularity. So if you're not getting your period regularly, that may contribute to it. Also may contribute to a decreased ovarian reserve. And it's really connected to quality of embryos, your hormone balance, and also for men too, decreased testosterone, poor sperm quality and quantity. But that's really seen, to be honest with you, mostly in high amounts, in moderate to high intakes. And that's, approximately 7 or more. Moderate's about 4. However, There's a really great research done in 2011 that revealed that heterosexual couples who sought IVF treatment, and they found that there was a lower live birth rate among partners who both consumed 4 or more alcoholic drinks per week compared to those who consume less. So 4 or more doesn't seem like a lot, but that alone really can make a big difference. So ideally, less than 4 if you can, if it's something that is a non-negotiable that you want to have prior to a treatment. And for me, it's really how we consume it. We typically consume alcohol on an empty stomach. We consume alcohol in replacement of water. We often make poor food choices when we have alcohol. So there's many reasons aside from the potential ramifications, regarding fertility, of why it may not be so great. And same goes with caffeine. We do see some lower fertilization rates in IVF cycles with high caffeine doses. Also, not decreased. It may increase early miscarriages. Again, the research is not fully there, but we do see it's definitely there above 300 milligrams of caffeine. But 300 milligrams is not that much when you think about it. You go to a Starbucks, you get a grande, which is 16 ounces or 2 cups. You get a blonde roast, that has 360 milligrams of caffeine. I see so many people who have really large coffee cups. They're drinking a lot more than they probably even think that they're having. And again, just like alcohol, it's probably also displacing your water content. Alcohol and caffeine also, I want to mention, in large amounts can also not help you absorb a lot of those vitamins and minerals that I mentioned are so key for fertility. And on top of that, it doesn't help us sleep so well, especially if we're consuming too much and too late in the day. So, besides nutrition, there are definitely other modifiable lifestyle factors that we really can focus and hone in on to help positively impact our fertility and conception. And the first one is body weight. Both being underweight or obese can have potential negative side effects that are connected to fertility. It can negatively affect our hormone balance, our ovarian function. It can not be great for our for menstrual regularity, for the development of our eggs. It potentially can, if we're on either extreme, it may increase our risk for miscarriages, and potential complications when you are pregnant. And this also goes for men as well. It can negatively, being obese can also relate to sperm count and sperm motility. And also excess weight has also been linked to the development and worsening of PCOS, or polycystic ovarian syndrome. So according to a study done in 2022, as you can see on the right, this graph, you can see the relationship between infertility and BMI. It presents this U-shaped curve. So basically BMI that lay on the extremes of the spectrum. So that means 18.5, so below 18.5 or above 30, tended to predict infertility. But when it comes to weight loss, it doesn't have to be a lot, or even weight gain. Slow and steady is the way to do it. But even, when it comes to weight loss, even a 5% decrease in body weight can make a huge difference, a really significant difference in your fertility and reproduction, and ultimately conception. But weight loss should be done slowly. And that's where I come in. It really is best alongside the support and guidance of a dietitian or a trained healthcare provider. And that way you can do it in a healthy way that can really help optimize your health, and not do it in something that's, in a very restrictive way. Exercise, so important for health and fertility. And it's amazing. I really do see so many of my patients nowadays living a more sedentary lifestyle, especially post-COVID. A lot of people now are working from home, so they don't have that commute to work. So they're missing out on their daily walks to work, maybe daily walks to the subway. People are working a lot longer hours. But it's really shocking that less than 50% of Americans report exercising the recommended 30 minutes of moderate intensity exercise per day. So moderate intensity, not even a lot. We're falling short. We're really failing in this area. And exercise is important aside from the fertility benefits. It's a great stress reliever. It's a natural, easy, cost-effective stress reliever, especially for walking. It can increase our strength. It can help prevent diseases like diabetes and cardiovascular disease. It can also naturally lower our blood sugars. So yes, food can help naturally lower our blood sugars, but so can a little bit of exercise. And it's also connected to sleep, better sleep. When we exercise, we often sleep much better too. And then on top of that, if we're working out outside, we're going for a walk outside on a sunny day, we're also getting the added benefit of vitamin D, which is really important for fertility. And then when it comes to, fertility parameters, it can help, the right exercise can help regulate our menstrual cycle. It can help improve estrogen metabolism. But really finding the right workout that is good for you, and it really should be individualized. Similar to body weight, either extreme is not great. So not exercising enough, being very sedentary, not great. But there is such a thing as getting too much exercise and too much vigorous, intense exercise that has been shown to lead to more inflammation in your system and potentially not helpful for fertility. I kind of mentioned this briefly, but sleep. I speak to all of my patients about the importance of sleep for fertility health. It really is connected to hormonal balance. When you go to bed at night and you get that good quality sleep, those stress hormones, those cortisol levels go down. Super important. If our cortisol levels don't go down, we wake up with really elevated stress hormones, those cortisol hormones, and it makes us hungrier and cranky. It's not great. But stress can also help with your immune system. If you're getting a good night's sleep, you're less likely to get sick. It can help with your memory. It can help regulate your appetite. And again, it can be linked, if you're not getting enough sleep or enough good quality sleep, it can really be connected to fertility issues. And the recommendation is generally 7 to 9 hours of sleep. But I think more important than the amount of sleep that we get, it's really the quality of the sleep that we get. And so sleep hygiene, really, really important. And what does that mean? That means creating an environment that helps support good sleep. So, minimizing a lot of the blue light that we have before bed. So if you're on your laptop, if you're watching TV, if you're on your phone, which we often are before bed, that emits blue light, and that makes our brain think that it's still daytime, and it makes it harder to fall asleep and get that deep quality sleep. So shutting down lights, making your environment quiet, removing electronics from your bedroom, really trying to get off your phone, and you're not watching TV, not working before bed, trying to calm down before bed. Can all really help in terms of optimizing better sleep, and actually getting to bed before midnight is also really important. The other thing that I like to note is another reason why caffeine isn't so great is that a lot of people can't metabolize or process caffeine so well. So a big chunk of the population actually still might have caffeine in their system 12 hours after they consume it. So if you do consume caffeine, definitely cut it off by by 12 p.m. And then also not eating too close to bedtime, giving yourself, 2 to 3 hours, ideally 3 hours, to help your body digest its food. So when it comes time to sleeping, your body is just relaxing. It's not working. Another modifiable area that we can work on is really trying to minimize environmental toxins. They can definitely negatively influence our hormonal balance. They can act as endocrine disruptors. So they can, make our hormones very wonky. So it could disrupt our menstrual cycle, ovulation, sperm and egg health, and also, unfortunately, fetal development. So also when you're pregnant. The sad thing is there's a lot of toxins out there that we don't have any control over. Air pollution, paint fumes. I mean, maybe we can work on it, car exhausts. But there are three things in particular, three toxins in particular. It's a great start to look at and really try to reduce day to day. The first one is BPA, which is found in plastics, metal can liners, the cash register receipts that you get, reusable food containers, especially when you heat them up, they can go into our food and not be great for us. Phthalates, which is a synthetic chemical that is used to make plastics bendy, flexible, malleable. It's also used to make those plastics smell good. And they're also found in many personal care products. And then the last one is the PFAs. They're also known as the forever chemicals that potentially can stay in your body forever. And those are found in nonstick cookware, personal care products, and water repellent clothing. I do highly suggest you go to ewg.org, millionmarker.org, or even the Fuka app. They have some great resources of products that don't have as many of these toxins or are toxin free. Even just decreasing some of these exposures and these environmental pollutants could really potentially help improve our fertility outcomes. And then the last thing I want to mention before I wrap up is working or focusing on mental health. Life is very stressful. Struggling with infertility is very stressful, and it's normal to feel anxious, to have feelings of depression, to feel isolated, definitely to have that feeling of loss of control. It's really so common, and it's understandable to feel these ways, to feel like this. And it's no surprise that both men and women do often experience higher levels of anxiety and depression, especially during IVF or other fertility treatments compared to the general population. And that's why I really, really do highly stress the importance of seeking professional help if you need some extra support. And that's why, RMA, we have such a phenomenal team of support. Rena and Georgia are phenomenal supports that they can help guide you and help walk you through whatever it is that you're going through on your fertility journey. And there's some things that you can do on your own as well. Kind of goes hand in hand with exercise. Walking can be great. I do really highly suggest considering a meditation practice. Even starting with some simple breath exercises can be great to help lower stress levels. Having a daily gratitude practice is something that I often recommend to my patients. At the end of the day, looking back at your day and thinking of three things that you're really grateful for. Ooh, I had a really nice, comfortable bed that I woke up to this morning. Oh, that person opened the door for me. I ate a dinner that was super duper yummy. And also journaling can be a great way also to get out those emotions. But we're also really important to create a good community, a good support group. And that could be from your family, from your friends. And there's a lot of fertility support groups out there as well. And again, reaching out to a specialist can also give you some added tips and support in that way. So really, there's so many things that we can do to support our health, our fertility, our chances of having a healthy pregnancy, a healthy baby. And the good news is that, these small things, if we do them, you make these changes small and realistic and manageable for our day-to-day, collectively can all contribute to really positive fertility outcomes. We shouldn't just nourish ourselves physically, but also mentally. And again, I really want to reinforce the importance of seeking out qualified healthcare providers that can help you reach those goals and really support you. So I'm really appreciative. Thank you so much for listening. And now we're going to get to some Q&A. We have some time. So let me first stop my screen sharing and I am going to get to some of these important questions, as many as I can. Okay, so the first question I have here is, what is your take on vegetable oils? Great question. So some of those vegetable oils are definitely part of the omega-6 fatty acid oils. So, your standard veggie oil is part of that. Your corn oil, your soybean oil, your canola oil. That's actually what we find mostly in, when we go to restaurants, we go to fast food. They're not typically cooking with avocado oil or grass-fed butter. So, using it here and there is fine, but it's not something that I would recommend using regularly, and especially at home, since you're probably going to be getting a lot outside of the home if you do eat out at restaurants. At least when you're eating at home, I really do like to prioritize cooking with something like avocado oil, which has a high smoking point. And then when we're using, making salad dressings, using something like extra virgin olive oil is much better. And the same person asked me a question about prebiotics and probiotics. I know, super duper confusing. I probably should have another webinar on this topic, but just to give you a brief recommendation or a brief explanation, probiotics are the actual bacteria, the good bacteria that we want in our gut. It helps keep us healthy. So we need all these live active microbes, these live active, items in our body, and that we can actually get through foods like your yogurt, like sauerkraut, like kimchi, like a little bit of kombucha. Those are the good bacteria. They have live bacteria that we need to keep our GI tract healthy. The prebiotics are the food to feed the probiotics. So yes, you can get all the great, probiotics out there, the live bacteria, but if there's no nutritious food for them to eat, they won't thrive in your body. So that's a great question. I do think getting it from food first is great. And I typically generally don't recommend taking them from supplements, unless there's, unless you've been on you've had to take antibiotics afterwards to replenish some of the good bacteria that was taken away from the antibiotics. I may put someone on a probiotic, but again, it's on a case-by-case basis. Some people with GI issues, sometimes I'll also put them on a probiotic or a prebiotic. Great question. So someone kind of along the lines of fiber, can we go over fiber options and how much we should have on a daily basis? I recommend 1 to 3 servings of fiber a day, and at least getting your first fiber option source in the morning. Because it's a carbohydrate, it can, and it also it's very satiating. It goes in your body and it doesn't raise your blood sugar levels the same way that other carbohydrates do. So fiber coming from bran, like a bran cereal, or flax seeds, or chia seeds, or avocado, or even raspberries are great items to have in the morning, paired with a source of protein, to really help keep you feeling full and satiated until lunchtime, to prevent your blood sugars from rising too quickly. But I really do think fiber from food is the best way to go, as opposed to relying on something like a Metamucil or a pill. That just doesn't work the same way, and they're often not giving you a natural source of fiber coming from food. And again, you could do too much of a good thing also from your supplements. And you could also do too much fiber coming from food. If you notice that you're getting the opposite effects, fiber helps things move along, helps bulk up your stool. If you notice that you're just going to the bathroom all day long, having a lot of loose stool, you may want to ease up and not have as much fiber as maybe that you're getting in. You may be going to 1 serving a day, or maybe 2 servings. What supplements do you recommend for egg quality? That is, for me, the prenatal vitamin is essential. And again, for me, it's such a personal thing. There's no one size fits all. For me, I actually like patients to get some blood work done before I really make that recommendation. I do think there is some value perhaps to CoQ10. But again, before I tell people to start taking it, I really do want to see what they're currently eating, what their current habits are, before I start giving specific recommendations when it comes to supplements. Great question. What are your thoughts on canned food? Canned foods, your beans, legumes, your vegetables. I don't mind. Well, is it better to have canned vegetables and no vegetables? Probably. But my biggest concern with a lot of canned foods is the lining. As I mentioned before, there are a lot of toxins in the lining of a lot of cans. And even, we're seeing some cans nowadays that say BPA free. But I believe we're discovering now that they're coming up with something else, like a roundabout way to give us something that may be just as toxic. But yes, canned beans on occasion can be fine because there's so many nutrients, nutritional value in beans. I would definitely say to rinse them before. Canned vegetables are really often soaked in such a high amount of brine or like a salt solution that even rinsing them, it's not gonna remove that. So I really do want to prioritize fresh or frozen vegetables first over canned vegetables. And then if you can find, any type of glass, I know it's much heavier, but any type of beans or even tomatoes found in like a glass jar, that's probably best. I started soaking my beans, which actually is much easier on your digestive tract. You soak the beans overnight and you cook them. Yes, it's a little bit more work, but if you make a big batch and then you portion them out individually, they can last you a long time. And they really can cause a lot less GI distress that people often report when they go for canned beans. I love this. What are your thoughts on cooking with oils? So I did mention that, but I'll reiterate again that yes, olive oil really is great, but once we heat it on, once we turn the heat up on high, oxidation can happen. And I spoke a little bit about, oxidation, how that's not great. And basically it can turn a healthy oil into an oil that's less healthy. So I do prefer using extra virgin olive oil when I'm cooking something on very, very low heat, or more specifically, I love it for my salad dressings as like the fat base. But avocado oil is a much better option when you're cooking. And I like it because it doesn't have that much of a flavor or taste to it. And I'm also not against grass-fed butter. But I would try to minimize, as I mentioned before, your canola oils, your corn oil, your soybean oil. Let me see. You guys have a lot of questions. This is amazing. I'm going to repeat the websites for non-toxic foods, tools, clothes. EWG.org is great. They're the ones that came up with the Dirty Dozen and the Clean 15, the fruits and vegetables that you should choose organic and the ones that you don't necessarily need to choose. I also love Million Marker. I'm giving her a plug because we had the founder on the podcast that I co-host with the incredible Rena, who is our therapist on staff at RMA. So she has amazing resources. And then the third one I mentioned was, I believe it was Yuka, and it's an app that you can use for your personal care products where you can basically go on and, look at the code of, from the barcodes, and it can rate the quality of your lotions and your shampoos. I know we are now at 6:30, which is basically an hour. And so I feel bad I wasn't able to get to everyone's. The last thing was, what's the name of my podcast? Fertility Forward. But if there's any further questions, feel free to reach out to me at dgodfrey@rmany.com. And I really hope I cleared some questions for you and gave you some guidance to really help you on your fertility journey. Thank you so much for being here, and everyone have a great night. Take care.